Responses engine 5, engine 3, engine 1, ladder 3, ladder 2, rescue 1. We've got full showing. Division 1, you're on location, box 23, reporting smoke show on 727.
So we're ready to go?
Yeah.
Let's go, boys.
All right, let's fucking do it. All right.
Right.
So what's up, everybody? Welcome to JobTlks, the #1 firefighters podcast on the interwebs. Maybe not, but we are a multinational media conglomerate. Matt, you want to fact check that for me? Facts. We have hits from...
Currently have hits from Russia, Belarus, North Korea, and a few other authoritarian states, and the United States.
So multinational. That's it.
And Canada.
On a serious note, welcome to the show. This is obviously our first episode, so we're probably going to be really awkward and have no idea what we're doing. So we're going to kind of wash that away with some booze and hopefully get through the show. Before we get into it, help us out. Follow us on JobTlks or at JobTlks on Facebook and Instagram. It's JobTlks. Barry forgot the A, so that's how we spell it.
Patent pending.
Patent pending. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's also at JobTlks. And don't forget to turn on the notifications and get alerted when we drop new episodes, because we do plan on dropping more than this single awkward episode. Since it's our first show, I think probably doing a round of introductions is in order. Barry, you want to tell us kind of how it got started and then who you are, what you're about?
The origin story? You want to start with the origin story?
Yeah, I think the origin story is good.
All right. So my name's Barry. I work in the Cambridge Fire Department. It's like a medium-sized fire department in Metro Boston. I started as a call guy way back when, a little hiatus for the Army. So I guess the origin story, I'll take it all the way back. So I grew up in an extremely affluent family right outside the city of it's a large metropolitan city. My parents were murdered in an alleyway. And since then, I grew up with my butler. And since then, I've pretty much dedicated my life to fighting crime and firefighting podcasts.
So you're a superhero?
No, that's my life story.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. So anyway,
Sounds a lot like the backdrop to another famous.
No,
superhero.
common misconception. No, so the
Scooby-Doo? Or
yeah, the original Scooby-Doo.
The original
Scooby-Doo. No, so I guess the origin story of JobTlks is essentially, I've had a few gatherings at my house where we bring guys together to kind of, bring guys together positively, talk about positively influencing their organizations, talk about culture, bring guys together passionate about the job. And that's kind of just evolved since we recently held an event with Bobby Eckert from Eckert Fire Tactics that was well received. And I was talking to John one day, and John was essentially like, hey, you seem to be passionate about bringing people together for these intelligent and engaging conversations regarding firefighting. He's like, why don't you start a podcast? And that kind of started the ball rolling of like, why don't we? There's a lot of podcasts out there pertaining to firefighting, so I don't think we're really reinventing the wheel. But I think, we represent a unique niche in the fire service, representing the younger generation of the fire service on some of the things that specifically pertain to us. So here we are.
And you kind of put us together intentionally with different backgrounds.
I did, yeah. So I tried to, when you look at the fire service as a whole, right, the vast majority of the fire service is call and volunteer, and maybe, there's a much smaller subset that is career paid firefighters. So I think that, we're trying to capture as much as that audience as possible to kind of replicate the conversations that you have at a firehouse table, and we can bring that to a larger audience. But the intent of bringing these four individuals together, other than the fact that you guys are four of my best friends, is we all represent like a unique...
Do we have a not facts poster for Matt to hold up? No, we're not best friends. We're not good friends.
We are facts. All right. We all represent a different and unique component in the fire service. So I started as a call firefighter and eventually made my way to Cambridge. Will, you started a small suburban job and made it to Cambridge. Matt's on the city of Woburn. He worked as a paramedic in a busy metro service with me as well. And John works on Stoughton, which is I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, but we all come from different services, different backgrounds. And I think that's able to kind of encapsulate different experiences to bring a relevant conversation together. So I thought that was important.
John?
Oh, my name is John, and as Barry said, I work in the town of Stoughton, otherwise known as Tough Town. Tell your friends. No, actually, I got ties to the town because the Morrissey side of my family grew up there. So when I got into town, I actually knew or were familiar with some of the guys on the department, or they knew my family. And then I've actually gone to calls with like my grandparents' friends and things like that. So, and I bump into a lot of people that I know in town, like people I didn't know I had. So I do have a connection to the town. It's not just a random town. I grew up in Brockton, so it's really right next door. But yeah, we're a small department. And
What do you guys run for like daily staffing?
Yeah, so we have an 11-man minimum, and but then we staff up to anywhere from 11 to 13 or 14 guys, depending on the amount of guys we have, depending on obviously sick, injured, things like that. It's always varying. So, but we have 2 engines, and we have 3 in each engine, and we run 2 frontline ambulances, obviously 2 in each ambulance, and then we have a car. And then, so obviously, if we have any kind of event during the day, any kind of incident, we have day staff involved as well, and that can be up to an additional 4 or 5
Nice.
people. So yeah, we have a fair amount of staff.
Decent size.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's bigger than I thought it was, honestly.
yeah. So, and on to Matt.
Yeah. So as Barry said earlier, we kind of met initially in medic school
Back in the day.
back in like 2015, 16.
Yeah.
Worked in a busy system in Cambridge doing EMS for private service, and got to learn actually very fortunately to learn from the Cambridge fire system and how they do things, and their unique setup with private EMS and related to the fire service, and then eventually made my jump to the fire department, which is what my goal was to begin with, kind of used as a stepping stone, which I'm sure a lot of people have done and
Oh yeah.
will continue to do. Woburn is where I work now. It's a smaller, city just north of Boston. Daytime populations are around 50,000, but then with the industry during the day, it easily jumps up to several 100,000. We got 2 major highways, a rail service. So we get a little bit of everything. The department sizing itself, we're 80 men fully, on the job. We have 5 firehouses. Our minimum manning per day is 17. So we can run down as low as 15, but we try not to.
Yeah.
We try to keep it up around 17, but you know how that goes, the politics and everything.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
so like I said, 5 firehouses, 3 engines with 3 men apiece, 1 tower, 3 men. We have a full-time ambulance with BLS with 2 guys. We have a second ambulance that we run Monday through Friday only. No nights, no weekends, no holidays. Just
Is that
people
in
don't get
impact truck?
sick on those days.
it's a second ambulance BLS that we staff strictly Monday through Friday because apparently that's the only time you need it. And
Just an impact truck, right? When
That's
you
what I
have
was
the
saying,
highest
yeah.
population in the city.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with need. It has everything to do with finances, but again, that's the politics behind it all. But so the need is there, and we know that, but it's not as easy accomplished. And then we have a shift commander, which is the captain. He has his own personal vehicle, and then we have a deputy chief and the chief as well. So, that's our typical day to day, and it's a very unique system. So
Nice. I'm Will. I work with Barry on Cambridge. I am a transplant, Air Force brat, so kind of moved all over, but from Florida mostly. I worked on a smaller suburban department where we ran 6 on duty when we were full and ran down to 5. Cross-manned the ambulance with the ladder and the engine at one station, and then the other station ran 2 guys. It's a good department, but almost 4 years ago came over to Cambridge. That's how I met Barry. Honestly, the day one, I thought it was the biggest mistake of my life because Barry had me scrubbing the walls of the kitchen at like 8 o'clock at night when we didn't have any air conditioners.
It's called building discipline.
It was legitimately like 85 degrees in the station, and I was like, "What the fuck did I do?"
Were you using soft bristle or hard bristle
He
toothbrushes?
had soft bristle.
Yeah,
You guys
those
have
are better
worked
for your gums and the walls. But so Cambridge, we run 8 engines, 4 trucks, 2 squads, a rescue, and 2 division chiefs. And we run 3-man minimums on trucks and pumps, and then we run 4 on the rescue, 2 on the squads, and the division chiefs. I think our minimum manning is 46.
40, yeah, I believe it's 46.
46. So we run 46, and that not including office staff. We have obviously kind of a full complement of office staff too. But it's a fairly busy metro department, and I really enjoy it. Get to do quite a bit. I'm on the squad up in Porter Square, so just throwing it out there. We all work on these departments, but we don't represent them on this show, so everything's our own opinions and thoughts here. Speaking of, I think that one of the most important things to keep in mind for the people that are listening or watching this is that we aren't the experts. We're not trying to come off as the experts. We obviously have experience in different things, just like other people do. Our real goal here is to get conversations started, so we can facilitate knowledge sharing, so we can find experts that are really knowledgeable in their field, and maybe eventually get some of these people to come on, share some of that knowledge with us, and just kind of build a better fire service through training and culture. I think is a big thing. But we're not here to tell anybody how to do their job. We're just here to share what we know and see what you guys know. We want to learn, as Barry says all the time. We're students of the job too. Mm-hmm. So, I think that leads kind of right into the content. So, we're not going to come out swinging, trying to talk about some complicated events. We're gonna start this off and kind of talk about why we're here. And I don't know if any of you have seen or heard of Gordon Graham, but he's a former, I believe, LAPD officer. He was a motorcycle cop. I think he developed their motorcycle program. Anyway, he has his own company, and he does a lot of safety and training stuff. He's big on risk mitigation, stuff like that. And he has a good video. I remember seeing this a long time ago. I don't remember where or when I saw it, but it always kind of stuck in my mind. So it's older. Apologize, the quality's not maybe not the best, but the point is there. So I'm just gonna play a short clip from the video, and then we can talk about it. So Nick, you want to throw that up?
Time to think it through, and no time to think it through.
Just a couple seconds.
These are the ones that scare. Oh, I said, very good, Jakey. That is a high-risk, low-frequency event. But there's 2 types of high-risk, low-frequency events: the DTs and the NDTs. Time to think it through, and no time to think it through. These are the ones that scare the hell out of me, folks. Right here.
About the DTs.
What I like to
We've all
call the
experienced those once or
HR,
twice.
LF, NDTs. Tasks that are very risky, done very rarely, with no time to think it through. And the bad news for us in public safety in general, and you in the fire service in particular, is that we have a number of these HR, LF, NDTs. High risk, low frequency, no time to think it through. Let me give you some classic risk management, ladies and gentlemen. If you study consequences, these can be identified through a study of consequences. And once these high-risk, low-frequency, non-discretionary time tasks have been identified, they can be addressed through a serious training program. A serious training program that focuses every day on HR, LF, NDTs, where every day is a training day. What will we do if this happens? What will we do if this happens? High risk, low frequency, non-discretionary time tasks. These scare the hell out of me, folks. The good.
So that's, the video is 15 minutes long. We're going to have that up on our Facebook page, or it should have been up already. So if you haven't seen it, feel free to go and see it. Obviously, if you're listening to this and not watching this, you can go on and see any of the stuff we do. But this video is 15 minutes long. It kind of talks a lot about having systems in place. He talks about high risk, low frequency. I'm sure we've all heard it before as high acuity, low occurrence, or some other, halo, whatever.
Plenty of different variations.
Yeah, but the kind of the whole point of it is that there's stuff that we do in the fire service that we don't do all the time, and for some departments that could be literally going to a fire, right? Fires are down. We're not seeing them as much as we used to, which makes them more dangerous. It could be like a hazmat. It could be whatever the case is. And I think like he says, like getting training programs, identifying this stuff is super important in mitigating it.
And I think that's like kind of going back to like to the nexus of the show is like you see this shift in our generation from the previous generation as far as fires are down. You don't see as many fires as we used to, and that's just the nature of the business, right? We're no longer just the fire department. We're an all hazards agency. So like you said, it's not just firefighting, it's hazmat, it's technical rescue, it's rope, it's trench, it's all these other things that encapsulate.
It's EMS.
EMS.
Yeah.
Last but not
I don't want to get canceled on our first episode,
but not
yeah,
least.
Well, that's the one that nobody wants to talk about.
No,
but
we'll
let's
talk
be
about
honest,
it. We'll talk
the
about
primary thing that we all do.
Yeah, and just for everyone here is a paramedic.
So.
So I mean, we can talk. We'll certainly talk about EMS.
We'll broach the topic for
sure.
We'll
broach the topic. But that's that generational shift, right? No longer is structural firefighting. I don't think any of us here really have any legitimate experience with wildland firefighting, but structural firefighting are no longer those low risk, high frequency events. They're the high risk, low frequency event. EMS is the low risk, high frequency event now. So just transitioning that conversation, obviously you said we're students of the craft. So bringing in guys that have experience in all these, niche subjects to broach those topics, but just understanding that there's a generational shift, that our training realities, our operational realities are much different than that of our predecessors. And how do we fill those gaps? And like Gordon Graham was saying, one of the ways that we can fill that gap is with serious, legitimate training.
Right. And I think even just talking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not necessarily, obviously like getting out and like doing reps on stuff, but also just talking.
Yeah.
Like I was having a conversation with a guy I used to work with the other day and kind of talking about how do you keep people motivated to do this stuff. And I think one of the downsides of not seeing as much fire is that people don't know what they don't know. And so they get complacent in the fact that they haven't gone to a fire in a while or whatever the case is. And like for me, I just don't want the first time I have to force a complicated door to get in a building is when somebody's like reported to be in a room up there that I can't get to, with some other access or to know to try some other access if it's difficult to get in. Like I just don't want to. I don't want to be put in that situation. I don't want somebody that's like expecting me to know what I'm doing to be put in that situation. And I think the way we do that is we, like I said, start these conversations, implement training programs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that gets us to how this all started with different departments and their outlook on training and how they're going to implement training. And so, some bigger departments, they can pull different apparatus and crews from service and they can cover them.
Yeah.
And then you can step out and you can do training where if you come to Stoughton and do some training, you will find very quickly we all get set up for training, and then the second we're about to start, here comes that medical.
Yeah, it's clockwork. It's no different than when you're trying to eat. It's like
same thing.
Guaranteed to get a run or multiple runs,
Yeah.
and to every piece that you had designated is now. We just tried to do ice training a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
We left one piece in service, and it happens every time, but. Literally within 5 minutes, we had like 6 runs going on.
Yep.
Everybody's crisscrossing the city.
That's it.
And we never got to do anything. We were barely breaking the ice. And
no pun intended.
And it sucks because you get excited to do the stuff, and, and you never get to get hands.
I think most people like getting into that like hands-on mode. Like like I know I do. Like ice rescue, perfect example. Like when one person from each company is going to get in the suit and go in the water like every single time.
Yeah.
I want it to be me just because I like doing it. Obviously, like that's right. Like as you get a little older, it gets complicated because you're like, all right, well, I got to let the younger guy do it. I've done it before, but I still always have that want.
That's the funnest training I think we have all year.
For us, it's the new guy draws the shit under the stick. He's getting wet. I always go in anyways just because I want to be prepared. God forbid.
No, it's good training.
Just want to make sure the suit still wraps around your chest.
It never fits. I get wet every time. There's no such thing as a dry suit. But
Well,
it looks good though.
Or you don't like get that last click of the zipper.
It doesn't fit. Yeah, it goes up to like chest, just enough to let
Right.
You can't
everything
flex,
in.
dude.
So
That's the key.
And with that
I mean,
said,
we could flex. He can't
Yeah,
flex.
can't
He
flex.
rip that thing
no,
apart.
yeah.
it's like
Poof.
putting a water suit on the Michelin Man.
For me, it's like the height is like trying to get, the Mustang suits. They got that like neck flap you have to bend
Yeah,
into.
yeah.
Dude, I feel like a fucking giraffe. It's
Why is there
awful.
so many rolls?
And then you gotta like crouch and get all the air out, or you jump in and you fucking float all weird. So
You don't want it to
sucks
be. You
in
don't want
and
it to be skin tight either.
for, yeah,
You know
for
what I mean?
such
You want a little-
for such a bulky suit, it really shows a lot of body contour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very form fitting. It's nice.
Yeah.
We actually just did ice rescue training at Cambridge a couple weeks ago, and it was good because like for our
didn't do
group,
it.
we had a couple warm days.
Engine companies weren't invited.
Yeah,
It was on the squad.
yeah, squad life.
Scrad.
Cool.
You want to explain what that is to?
It is the absolute best company /
Yeah,
job.
we know.
Okay, so no, but it was good because we went in and we had a couple of warm days beforehand.
Yeah.
So like the groups that went ahead of us, like they had actually cut holes in the ice and got in.
Yeah.
But we got to go in and literally just kind of fall through. So like
Yeah.
as we were trying to make the rescues and
Nice.
stuff, we
Yeah.
actually fell in, which is
Yeah.
good because you're not going in when the
Yeah.
ice is 18 inches thick
Yeah.
either. But
No, which we don't get around here.
I think you guys bring up a good point. So like, we kind of have the luxury of being able to call out of service. Like companies will call out of service for training, and like I didn't realize how much of an impact that had until recently. We tried to do. So I'm on Engine One. That's one of the rope companies, and we tried to stay in service and do rope training. We got 3 calls during that course. So it's just impossible. So I think that's one of the forgotten luxuries.
Yeah.
It's like we don't have, like you said, like some guys don't have the luxury of calling out of service for training. Like you're it
Right.
for the city.
and then like
Yeah.
not to like I don't think we should talk politics too much,
Yeah.
but like the other way to get training in is to hire people on overtime, which is a huge budget
Yeah.
concern for
Yeah.
Chiefs. Like
It's
it's not
going to be a no go for a
It's
lot.
not
of
happening.
it's gonna be a no go,
Yeah.
and
Train on your
so it gets hard. And then what do you do? And try and have that like
Yeah.
intercompany stuff where you try and get stuff done.
Yeah.
Not only overtime, but there are a lot of contracts out there that have training time built in to their contract. So some guys get like 60 hours a year of paid training outside or inside the department, however they structure it.
Yeah.
And that's something that we haven't been fortunate enough to get.
Yeah.
But going back to what we're talking about, like with these Halo events, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on for 4 years now, and I've gone to, probably like half a dozen fires, like 3 of them being like, real serious fires. I've actually been really fortunate, too, that I've gotten to pump like half of those, which
That's so critical, dude.
thank God, because you know what? That was one of those things that like kept me up at night. Like, man,
It's one of those.
how am
It's
I
one of
gonna
those things
pump
where
this
you
higher?
like, you always want to be going interior. Like
Yeah.
you want to be
Yeah.
the person taking the
Absolutely.
nozzle through the door, doing the cert, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's the most important job on the
yeah.
fire ground, and so like being good at it is like
Yeah.
dude, that
really important.
that first 2 pump operator, and that's one of the things that I think like differentiates us. And like maybe we're all speaking for like Metro Boston, but you look out in like California or like Florida, like the engineer or the pump operator is like a promotable position,
Right.
Where like
Yeah.
that's your dedicated position. But like here, like I was probably on the job for like 6 months, and I was already driving like pump operating, and that's
Right.
like such an incredible and crucial position that like that first 2 pump operator on an engine company like makes or breaks a fire. And it's so
That's,
critical.
that's the weight of the
Yeah.
world
Yeah.
on your
Yeah.
shoulders.
It was
right there.
even more so that. So I got off my training days out of the academy.
Yeah.
I got an overtime the very next day
Yeah.
off my training, and
Yeah.
I was, hey, have you ever driven this truck before? No, you're driving today,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so putting a lot of faith in me, but it's also very nerve wracking. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, shit, I
Yeah.
better
Those
have,
are the no bullshit moments.
yeah. It's like I
handle your
like,
better
shit.
not
yeah,
fuck
sink or
this up,
swim.
Yeah.
So
Trial by fire,
yeah,
sometimes literally.
exactly. And you're fortunate to work with some good guys who
Yeah.
aren't
Take care
gonna.
of
We're gonna be like, all right, we're gonna run over this. We're gonna go run through everything right now.
Yeah.
Let's go out. We'll
Yeah.
flow water.
Yeah.
But that quickly you're in the hot seat. And we don't have designated assignments as
Yeah.
far as truck assignments go. I can be
Yeah.
driver. I can be backstop.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And I should say now that I'm assigned to the ambulance currently on
Yeah.
my job.
Yeah.
All our junior guys start off on the ambulance, and we do our own dispatch.
Yeah.
Which is probably unique to us. I don't know if you guys do that.
Yeah.
No, we lost our
don't.
dispatch a long time ago, and I think we would all like to see it come back, but it just fiscally and everything else involved with
Yeah.
with
Yeah, it's
avoiding
hard.
all that.
So
It's
we still do that, and,
difficult.
and I get it. Junior guy, that's where you start, earn your
Yeah.
stripes. But at the same time, a guy fresh out of the academy, just learning the fire service. Okay, now you're on desk and ambulance. So it's like the training that you just got.
Starts
Well,
to,
now
Takes a
it's-
while.
yeah,
Yeah.
If you're not proactive to stay on top of it,
starts to decay.
you can go a good chunk of time, unless you're hungry for overtimes and like I said, hungry for work.
Yeah, right.
It can be a good while before you get to do that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Matt, do you guys take the ambulance to fires or do you cross man?
yes, no. So we don't cross man anything, and the ambulance to rescue is part of my minimum manning. So it's on it doesn't go on box responses like your typical box alarm coming in. But if it's a report, anything report of inside odor of gas, any report of smoke or fire, it always goes no matter what. And that's kind of nice because if you're, like I said, if you're a hungry guy,
gonna find
you're
You're
on top of
You're
it.
gonna get put on everything.
I know me personally. It's a personal challenge to beat the first due company there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I want to work, I want to do
Yeah.
stuff, and so you end up getting there pretty quickly. Either with the first arriving company, definitely with the second arriving company.
Yeah.
And our current assignment our SOPs is to report to the tower, and the lieutenant on that piece will give us assignments to essentially turn our ladder truck into a
Oh, so you guys go from ambulance to truckies on scene.
Yeah.
That's not a bad gig.
The reality of it though is, you might beat the ladder truck there, and which more often than not, unless it's in their district, you probably will. And then your assignment changes right away. So you kind of plug and play. You're going to report to whoever the officer is on scene at the time. More than likely going to be search.
Yeah.
And then, but the situation kind of dictates. You know how that goes.
That's like you, Will, the squad.
Yeah, squads are similar. They're kind of plug and play too.
Yeah.
So
do you want to
depending on-
explain our squads are different than like the traditional variation?
Yeah, so there's like the if you go to some of the Instagram pages, there's like the squads, you might see in FDNY, or I think Lawrence has one.
Brockton has a squad.
Yeah,
Squad A.
But do they roll an actual squad? Or do they roll?
it's the squad A.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They make fun of our squads, which are like they call it like 2-man Cali rigs.
Yeah.
The stuff from like emergency back in the day. So we're medics. So one thing with Cambridge is we staff ALS, but we're not transporting. So we staff both squads, the rescue and 2 engine companies have medics on them, and it's kind of a first response service so that we can initiate ALS care, transfer it to the ambulance company, or if it's if the situation dictates, we can take the ride as well. So we always have medics in service. But anyway, so on fire response, so we're the same. We don't do box alarms and stuff. We kind of have some equipment to do light rescue and extrication, meters, some hazmat stuff. But on scene, it's all about when we get there and who else is there, and how, like, so if the engine's running a 3, then maybe we help get lines in place. If the engine's running 4, maybe we go in and do the search immediately. Obviously, the building dictates that too, and the reported people inside. So I've been fairly fortunate on it, and I've kind of got to do a decent amount of stuff. But yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I have never pumped a fire.
So if I could just go back for a sec too, so I'm sure guys watching this would be like, what good is the ambulance getting there first? I understand that. I'm just saying I'm hungry and I want to get
No,
there.
but you know what?
But,
I've had that conversation.
Obviously, there's no water on it; it's useless.
But that's search, man.
It's just manpower.
Or if there's
That's it.
victims, if there is victims, we know that we have to. Ideally, you get the ambulance that piece out of the way. Don't block
Yeah,
any
down
of
the
the
street.
the crucial pieces from getting to the fire. And we know that, and we practice that a lot. Beaching it up the street.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not fully getting it lost on
Inaccessible.
scene, because if there is somebody that has to be pulled from the house, we do have to be the primary.
Oh, so you guys are the medical response for your own people too?
We have a contract with a private company to come provide an ALS and a BLS on scene standby for us.
Yeah.
But if the situation dictates where, it's somebody being pulled from the house, those resources aren't going to be there for at least 5 to 10 minutes or longer, if they're even available.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
especially right now.
the reality of it, private EMS, they're never available. So would we use a surrounding town if we needed to? Sure. But we try not to remove ourselves, because realistically, you do have an ambulance on scene.
Yeah.
As much as we want to get engaged in the fire aspect of it, you do have a responsibility to provide care to people too.
Yeah.
So
And I honestly, man, like I wouldn't sell yourself short. So like, it's not like you guys are third service where you're showing up with just an ambulance and you can't do shit, right? Like you guys are probably the quickest piece of apparatus in the city. if you guys are calling off first, you have the opportunity to give a good quality initial size up and report. So incoming companies, know what they're dealing with. And 2, if you get reports of accurate trap, you guys are going in. You're the initial search. Like, you don't need a hose line to do a search.
You can also, like, so I've actually had this conversation too with people. So the squad's the same way. We don't, I always take a can in for a reported fire, but we don't carry,
Do
we
you guys
don't
carry
have a
water
pump.
cans?
We have all that stuff.
You put a lot of
Not on the
fire out with a
And
water can.
we have ticks and we have everything we need
Yeah.
to safely enter a burning building
On the ambulance?
on the ambulance.
You kidding me, really?
Yep.
Wow, we don't have any of that.
We don't have gas meters. We're trying to get those.
Yeah. Wow.
But
that's awesome.
We
So
do
you guys are also kind of functioning like your rescue because you don't have a heavy rescue, right?
correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
so-
Exactly.
But like I had the conversation like, okay, so maybe our apparatus isn't a functional piece of apparatus, but the personnel are functional for a lot of reasons because, one, you got somebody trapped. Like, I want somebody there sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
you can only
absolutely.
survive that environment for so long. But also, if you got to get a door open or something like
you
that,
guys are
you can be
forcing
there
doors.
first. Like, you can have the building ready to go so that when that pump comes up, that line's going right in because the ultimate goal obviously is to get water on the fire. So
We had this conversation the other day, just sitting around the table talking at work, and there was debate as to you show up, heavy fire on arrival, second floor. What do you do if you're in the ambulance, right? And I said I'm going to gear up, and I'm going to go in with like door control, see if I can see anything, do a primary search if I can, depending obviously on how bad it is. If it's like isolated to an area of the building, it hasn't been going that long, maybe it just broke over. You're not going to go into an inferno, right? But yeah, we had that conversation as to whether you're going in without a line or what you're doing. But let's be honest, if oftentimes fire is not the first on scene anyways, and what do you have? You have cops kicking doors in and going in and making grabs.
At least you have the training and knowledge to like
And an
isolate.
SCBA.
Yeah, and an SCBA, so you can isolate, you
Yeah.
can shut doors.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can make sure that the entry point is controlled, so
Correct.
you're not venting the fire.
Yes.
Stuff like that. I think there's a lot of stuff like, again for us, like being in ahead of the hose line is something, but you can also help feed line, right? And like get that line headed to the fire,
Right.
and then you can break off for your search as
Right.
well. So
Yeah.
I don't personally agree with that. Like, you're useless if you don't have water or a ladder on your truck. The personnel are important too to do that stuff. But
So in all the fires that I've been to one of them, and it was the first fire I went to. I was on the ambulance, and I got to do everything. Whenever there was a gap to be filled, it was just kind of you stick with your guy on the ambulance, but whenever something, we were just swing guys.
Yeah.
And so we were up and down ladders, up and down the ladder truck, in pulling ceilings, backing up hose. We did everything.
Yeah.
So it was one
comes
of the best
back to
places to
the
be on.
whole training topic
Yeah.
because in this setting you're going to be asked to do one of many tasks. You don't know which one it's going to be, so you're going to kind of be proficient at all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not assigned to just one piece. You could be assisting that piece, assisting this piece,
Right.
whatever it may be.
and
So
go ahead.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest benefits. Like sometimes like I often find like guys on smaller jobs like shortchanging themselves in their experience. Like you guys have a huge benefit of the department that you both worked at for a period of time, or you guys cross staff to a degree, right?
Yeah, we crossed staff out ladder with our ambulance. Yeah.
That's an incredibly valuable experience because when you have in bigger cities, like I'm assigned to an engine company. Like I'm not assigned to a ladder company. I don't have that much exposure to a ladder company. Guys that are responsible for cross-staffing apparatus, like you have to be proficient with an ambulance, you have to be proficient with an engine company, you have to be proficient in a ladder company. My responsibility is to be proficient on an engine company, right?
And sometimes in one spot for your
in
entire
one spot
career.
in my
Right,
district, right? Unless I'm picking up overtime. So like I think that it's almost it's an asset to you guys that you have to be proficient across the broad spectrum of everything. You have to be proficient with ladder work, you have to be proficient with the aerial, you have to be proficient in engine work, search, rescue, right? So I think that like you guys are more versatile on the fire ground. Not to say that, city guys can't handle business, but like my experience is limited to engine company operations. And I have very limited exposure to
and we have that as well.
Yeah.
So like I'm in that position currently
Yeah.
because I'm on the ambulance and
Yeah.
I get my overtimes wherever they pop up.
Yeah.
But the way it's structured right now is like when you gain seniority, new guys come on the job and
Yeah.
older guys are leaving, you eventually get removed from the ambulance to fill in those spots at the outside station. So I could get assigned to an engine, and that could be my assignment for the rest of my career. I don't know.
Right.
You know, so you can fall into that as well. You know,
Oh, we definitely have guys that have done their whole careers on a ladder engine. I think the difference is, so like I really value having worked at a smaller department for that reason. Like I felt like it prepared me to take on being on a bigger city.
Yeah, a whole variety of roles.
Yeah, but the difference is like you also there's like a pros and cons to everything, right? So so the pro is that you get to be more versatile. You kind of learn a different more tasks and different roles on the fire ground. But the con of that is you're not like the expert, right? So like you being on an engine where the staff is enough that you can just be an engine guy means that you're going to be like an expert engine guy or an expert truck guy or whatever the case is. So I definitely did. There's like pros and cons of both. And, but I do. So I spent 7 years. It was Wayland, like I said, Metro West, and doing that, like we crossed me in the ambulance, ladder, engine, forestry truck. So I think bringing that to the new job when I got hired in Cambridge was for me invaluable.
Yeah, I think it creates a well-rounded individual is the point.
And you have like a little bit of mutual respect, you know, for all the different jobs that are happening on the fire ground kind of simultaneously.
Right.
And there's something to be said for showing up on scene with, you know, 2, 3, 4,
Dude,
four people trying to.
This is one of my big points. Like like in the city, like it's easier to be subpar because you can hide. Like it's no joke if you show up on a working structure fire with 4 guys because you can't fucking hide.
No,
like you either know what the fuck you're doing or you don't.
Yeah, you're getting in it,
and it's gonna show.
Yeah,
if you show up on like a working fire assignment, so in Cambridge, like you get it like a working fire.
You gotta fight people to get inside.
Yeah, you're gonna fight like 35 guys, 40 guys. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like it's easier to be. I mean, we're fortunate we have a lot of proficient firefighters, right? But like, you have any large agency, Cambridge in specific, it's easier to be subpar in a large pool, and that doesn't speak just to firefighting. It could be police officer, it could be the military. I mean, we're both from the military. Like, if you're in a larger pond, right, and there's a lot of fish, it's easier to hide. But if you show up on a working structure fire with 4 guys, there's a lot of shit that needs to happen. You better know what the fuck you're doing.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's easier to hide, but like also like not to sound like we have a bunch of people that are hiding and subpar at their job.
No,
but
because that's hardly the case.
That's hardly the case. But it's also easier to when you haven't gotten that training or done whatever. It's easier not to identify that because somebody else was able to get that task done. Whereas and that's what I was talking to my buddy, and he works on a smaller department. Is like when you're not seeing those fires, and then you're showing up and you're 4 people, and you got to put a fire out and get somebody out of a building. Like you're not going to know what that's like until it happens, and hopefully you've at least like played the scenario in your head, you know.
Yeah. Well, it takes knowing your system and when your next resources are coming, and then prioritizing
huge,
you know, what's important to you. But you know, back to the training thing, you know, one of the things that I noticed that we do a lot of because of how difficult it is to do a full like group day training, you know, situation is that we have most of our guys are just self-starters. It's like, hey, engine 2 today might hit us up, you know, call us that morning. Hey, we're gonna go out and do a little stuff over at the theater. If you guys want to come join us, you know, the ladder guys might call us. Hey, we're gonna drive through our district and size up some houses, and we're gonna throw the ladder around a little bit. If you guys want to come join us, so like, there's a lot of that because they know if there's a, hey, we got a car today and we're gonna cut it up. Chances are we're not gonna get through that.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So like,
that
type of stuff. Yeah.
We have a training division, and they kind of assign tasks, and they schedule training for us, and that's more at the department level. Although, you know, they'll bring a company or 2 at a time, whatever. Right. But then the same thing, like the company officers and even not even just the company officers, but like the firefighters in those companies, a lot of times just kind of take it upon themselves to do that training.
You have to do individual level training, and like I think that you're never going to get enough training. I don't think anyone at this table or in the fire service at large would agree that you're ever going to get enough training. But I think it's also important, if you're able to do so, is to train outside of work, right? So like for me, for example, you know, obviously in a fortunate position, not everyone is able to do so, but I literally allocate like $3,000 a year for outside like training that I want to do. So like last year I took.
Do you guys remember that affluent family thing?
Yeah.
3,000.
Three.
Yeah.
That's 3 zeros behind that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So
you're-
like
you're
if there's
about to be a
training that
dad.
if there's training that you want to do that like maybe is not within your department's means or resources, or you have to wait for your turn, like you can, there's nothing wrong with being a go-getter and going and getting that training yourself.
Right.
Like all my rope experience, like rope 1, 2, and 3, I went and did myself. Like, because if you're hungry and you want something, then go fucking get it. And I think that's what it comes down to. And I understand that like not everyone can afford to like, I'm gonna go take rope 1 and 2.
We're not all as well off as
Yeah.
Speaking of rope,
We get it.
Barry roped me into some training
Yeah.
a few years ago
Oh,
that
yeah. So-
we got ripped off real good
Yeah.
on.
So yeah, I'm still pursuing the legal ramifications of
I'm
pursuing a
still
refund.
damaged goods
Yeah.
from
What
that,
was-
so I
what was
haven't
it?
signed up for
Dude,
outside
so wait,
training since.
so I'm still upset. He let it go. It's not over for me, dude. It's not over.
Not over.
So we were gonna take some training up in New Hampshire, one of the bigger jobs in New Hampshire. And essentially they were hosting it was like a 2-day track. They had like an engine company track and a ladder company track, if I'm remembering correctly. But anyway, it was like what was it, John? Like $350?
It was $352,
Oh man.
And
and
49 cents.
I don't remember what it was
You
about.
spent
'cause
$3,500 on.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was about because I'm
but
still
anyway-
trying to recover from it.
Yeah. So it was like $350 for like 2 days. We're going to go up there, spend the night.
It's not bad, but it's not cheap. I wouldn't want to
No,
lose
it's not
it.
cheap. No.
Yeah.
But obviously COVID happened. It was the beginning of COVID, so they just canceled shit carte blanche.
Did you invite me to this?
I did.
And I said no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He almost
Good.
ripped you
Yeah.
off real
Good.
good.
Thank
too.
God.
So anyway, so this company,
I'm not
I'm
going
not
to.
gonna, I'm not gonna, yeah, I'm not gonna name
names.
names. Like this company is like
Check my
not
emails.
a small company in the like ticket hosting industry. Like went completely upside down and didn't have enough money to refund everyone. So here we are, 2.5 years later.
Were you guys training at the fire festival?
Wait, so you guys got
No,
hosed?
this
You guys
was
didn't-
essentially the fire festival of fire training.
Yeah.
We didn't
But
even
the actual fire
we didn't even
festival.
get bologna
Did you-
sandwiches.
oh, you
dude.
didn't even
And
get-
this went
so-
beyond the fire service, though. They're
No.
millions and millions and
So I
millions
looked it
of
up-
dollars.
Yeah,
Really?
I looked it up recently. There's like a $95 million lawsuit against this company because they
From-
still owe. Yeah, it's big.
Wow.
I would like to thank you from
Yeah.
the bottom of my heart for not inviting me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So of that 95 million, you best believe there's 600, $700 that I'm gonna fucking get.
Sorry. Yeah, that would be $704.
Yeah.
Just
I'm not a
quick
math guy.
math.
I'm not a math guy.
I
don't do
wrote
math.
I wrote it off to
I
good
don't
welfare.
do med math.
Why do you have to do med math? There's clocks, right? Isn't that the whole thing?
60 seconds in a minute.
That sucks. Number one. Number two, Barry's rich, so we've learned that. No, but I honestly, I
Both
think
my parents were murdered in an alley. I'll remind you.
yeah. This sounds weirdly like a story about a dude who had a butler and was like a flying rodent of some sort, right? Dark princess or someone like that.
No,
No,
Yeah.
I would appreciate you not mocking my life.
pterodactyl man. No,
This sounds
something like
just
that.
like Frozen.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
That's
How
what it
dare
is.
you? How dare you?
Yeah.
Sounds
Nailed
just like the plot to
I always
Good Will
knew you were a
Hunting.
princess.
We've done some training outside. Well, I mean, we did the Eckert class. We did
Your class,
the fire academy. We did the advanced structural firefighting.
Great class.
Yeah,
Highly recommend.
just that was good because we were fairly new to working with each other, and we were
Yeah.
just kind of like, hey, before we go in a fire, let's go do it at the
Yeah.
academy.
And it doesn't have to cost money to be good training.
Right.
Like leverage the resources, whether you have a county-based fire system, whether you have a municipal-based fire system, whether you're, I started on a call job that hosts their own internal organizational training that's high-quality training, or whether it's the fire academy. We have the Mass Fire Academy, it's Connecticut, California, whoever you have. There's a lot of classes that I don't think people realize are available that are free of charge.
Yeah.
You just have to pursue it.
Yep.
And that was one of the best classes. That was a great class.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
it was good. I mean, obviously, you're not getting in there burning up and whatever, but it was good
No,
to just
but-
like being new to working with you
Yeah.
and like getting into a
Yeah.
smoky, blacked out environment on
Yeah.
air where,
Yeah.
some people have a harder time than others with that stuff. And
Yeah.
like, it was just, for me, it was like less of the training as far as like moving hose line, because I knew how to do that. It was more like a
Yeah.
confidence builder in like working together with
Yeah.
you.
No, I still vividly remember from that training a valuable lesson that I learned. So obviously, we're in the burn building. We don't have, everyone has personal radios at this point, but radios can fail just like anything else. But during that hose evolution, they have the steel doors, but we had a coupling get so fucking bundled up in
Oh,
that steel
yeah, I
door.
remember that.
And Will's advancing the hose line, and I'm trying to get this coupling that's literally caught within the seam of this steel door, and it's not fucking going anywhere. So I had to force it with a Halligan, but I had to run upstairs and tell Will, like, hey, like, give me a second, I'm unfucking this issue, right? And then run downstairs and fucking fix it, and then give him more hose line. But, like, those are the things that are going to happen on the fire ground. It's not going to go as you think it's going to go.
Right.
Shit's going to get caught up. Like, we had a struck box the other day where I pulled, we have what's called a brick. Essentially, you're pulling the horseshoe. I had to go out, and then I'm back around to give myself a little bit of leeway. But we had, like, a couple street signs, and shit just get caught up in the street sign. I got to go back out of the street, grab it from the coupling so it's not caught on the coupling. So it's never going to go as you plan. So I think trainings like that give you the opportunity to potentially identify or at least get exposure to the fact that things aren't going to go the way you want them to go, and how are you going to react as a company.
I think like it's huge to have. I don't want to call those mistakes because they're not mistakes.
No,
They're just shit that happens, right?
No.
But it's
Pure
good to
learning.
have those experiences in a call where
Yeah.
it didn't end up mattering.
Right.
So like I know Barry. So Barry and I used to be together on Engine 3 before we split.
Yeah.
But
He broke up with me. Still upset.
yeah, well, whatever happens. We're still friends. That's the important part. But we had I
Matt, fact
distinctly
check that.
facts. I distinctly remember we another struck box where we
Lesson learned.
lesson learned. Like so for us, like you always get in gear and then go to the fire or the struck box. You don't get there and get your gear on. And it's one of those things where you don't really, does it really matter, right? And so we were like 2 streets away.
Yeah, we're right around.
Barry had the radio.
Yeah.
We were like 2 streets away. They struck it. So we were just like, we'll just go there. And then the confusion that occurred with like, I got dressed quicker. Barry was trying to give a report, but then get dressed. And then like, I was operating the pump, and then like nobody had actually gone in the house. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go in the house and make sure shit's good.
Yeah.
And then, so it just like confused the scene. And, you know, we talked to our deputy afterwards. We're like, hey, we fucked this up, you know, whatever. And it was one of the things he said. He said, you learn the lesson, and it didn't actually affect the outcome.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's always going to be lessons. People are always going to do something wrong. It's dynamic.
Yeah.
But
I've had 3 lessons like that on the pump alone.
Yeah.
So one quick question: how many snakes do you carry with you? Like the LDH, the 4-inch LDH. How many snakes are on your truck?
0.
0.
Oh, he's
Not
on the
you. You're a
squad.
squad.
Speak for yourself.
Big squad guy.
So we carry 3.
Yeah. So we have 4. So we have 100 feet, right? So we engine 2 is coming up, and you know they laid in. We break, and I'm pulling out. Either way, we're going to connect, right? And so we're pulling out the LDH, and I don't know what happened. We just kept pulling, right? And it was like all I needed was 2 snakes, except now I have an extra 50 to 70 feet of 4-inch laying in the street. And you don't think that that's a lot, but now I'm like looking, and they're about to send water up to my engine, and it's like there's like hose like near cars. There are people watching us just sitting there, and I'm thinking this is going to come up. This thing's going to fill with water. It's going to go over, break someone's ankle as it, right? And so I'm yelling at people to get out of the way, and it was just because apparently I forgot that I had 4 snakes available. You know what I mean? So it was just one of,
man.
Yeah, absolutely.
but nothing went wrong. There was no big kinks in the line. I had to move the hose a
You still
little
had
bit.
a water supply.
Still had
you
water
still
supply.
had
It all everything happened perfectly. But I figured out after, I was like, yeah, you could just use a couple snakes there.
Could have been
and you
more
would've been,
perfect.
yeah, it would have been. It would have been laying in a straight line. Like the chief would have came and been like, wow, great job. You know.
At least you didn't charge the hose in the bed.
Yeah. I haven't
mean,
done
that was
that
the
yet.
best,
But
right?
that will
Have you
actually.
done that?
I've done
No,
that on training.
I have not done that.
I've done it on
seen plenty
training.
of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Of it.
There
I'm
are
just
a
saying
lot.
it could be worse. Yeah.
I've done it on training, but as soon as I pulled it, I realized and put it back. But we still had to unpack the whole thing.
Gets
drain
that
it.
water and it wedge. The problem
That's
with it is it wedges. Like when it's in that bed and it's like, dude, it's fucking tight. Trying
That's
to
it.
out. Barry,
That's
you're
it.
making some faces over there.
I've never charged those, but
I haven't either.
yet.
Yeah.
But again, like man,
You
this
won't
is,
live
like,
that one down. They still make fun of me about it.
It's all right, dude.
Well, that's
It happens.
everything we do.
Yeah,
exactly.
You'll,
But
you'll
that-
never live it down.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like that's where like I think like these talks are important, right? So we can give each other shit, but we're not tearing each other down because there's not a single person that will be or has been or is currently in the fire service that's not going to make a mistake at some point. And like if you can make that mistake and learn from it on a situation that it had no outcome, great. If it's a situation that had an outcome, a bad outcome from it, then you know if you can learn and walk away from it and teach somebody else so that they don't do it next time, then then that's good too, man. It's a dynamic job.
Yeah. Shout out, I think Bobby Eckert himself, right? Said when
He's
when you make a mistake, you're just waiting for the next incident so you can fix it, right?
Yeah,
so you
exactly.
can do it right.
You're only as good as your last
it.
incident. Didn't he say that he charged the hose bed a
He
couple
did,
times?
yeah. And he
Yeah.
took a picture of it to show the next
Yeah, to
guy.
show-
Dude, that's
and-
ownership,
Yeah.
man.
He owned
And
it,
that's a big that's a huge
Yeah.
thing, and not just the fire service, but life in general. It's just
Right.
like taking ownership of your decisions, your actions, whatever.
Right.
And again, I think that's kind of how this came about, is right, like taking ownership of saying like, hey, I want to be a positive influence in the culture in the fire service. And
dude,
you know,
if you want to take ownership, like if you want to positively influence your organization or the people around you, then you need to realize that you take ownership for that responsibility. Like, you know, it's like, you know, be cliche, like, oh, if not me, then who, right? But like, dude, like if you want to change something, then do it.
Yeah.
Like if you want to positively influence your organization, positively influence your culture, you know, whether it's in your firehouse, within your department, or like the, you know, fire service writ large, like you need to realize like you have a responsibility to fucking make a change.
and it's also not just that people.
You got a dog. You got a responsibility.
Dog in the fight.
It's not just that. And it's not just that other people can't, because there are so many capable people. And like, I hope that as we go through this, that's what comes out. Like, I hope we get all these capable people, but sometimes it's just that people don't have either the personality or they're afraid to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
And so like, if you can be that person, which is exactly what Barry did kind of with this whole thing, is like, if you can be that person that just finally says like, hey, like, do you want to do this? I think you'd be surprised at how many people will be like, yeah, I would love to do that. And then like, I actually know a good amount about that. I can help with this, whatever. I just didn't necessarily like feel comfortable putting myself out there. And that might be one of the hardest things to overcome, right? We're
There's
all afraid of that.
there's an inherent risk involved with being willing to step out of the line and differentiate yourself, or being willing to raise your hand, because then you're in the public sphere. You're a topic of conversation. But you have to be willing to step out of the line and put yourself out there, and then I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the amount of guys and gals that are into the job, that want to be positive, you know, want to be a part of that change, want to be a part of the conversation, want to train, want to go to lectures. You'd be surprised. There's just a lot of people are just waiting for someone to like. All I view this podcast as, or you know, hosting the Bobby Eckert event, we're just facilitating the opportunity for people to come together and make a change.
knowledge share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many good people out
even
there.
that conference or talk, whatever you want to call it, like there were people there that I was like, oh, like, wow. Like like sometimes you don't, like they're maybe quieter in the station or whatever the case. And you're like, oh, like this is awesome. Now I know, you know?
Yeah. There's definitely some guys who have so much knowledge, but they're kind of the type of guy where you have to almost pry it from them. You know, and they're, you know, so valuable to the fire service, and you know, but sometimes you just gotta seek that information out, keep picking their brain.
But it's like some of the like the old military guys, like they saw a lot of shit, and like they're not really coming forward to talk about it and share all those experiences, because you know they're not all like great experiences or whatever. They've just seen a lot of shit, and if you can get them talking, sometimes you're like, I had no idea you did this.
We got a guy at my job. He
know,
literally tell you, he's like, name a street, I'll tell you all the cross streets.
Right.
Yeah, that's
and
fucking awesome.
we have yet to stump him. It's been 2 years.
That's crazy.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
He just knows it in and out. You know?
Yeah.
To
Through and through.
To touch back on what you were saying, Will, about like you'd be surprised on who's willing to train. So I was working on a different group, and one of my friends who I had trained with him all the time, whenever I worked overtime, we would do anything. We'd throw ladders. We would go grab extra hose. We'd make ourselves like, you know, just like the 100-foot sections you're pulling off of a Minuteman load, and we'd practice deploying them. You know, we do stuff like that. So I took those drills back, and me and, you know, I don't remember. I think it was just me and a couple of the newer guys. And so I said, hey, I did this with a guy in the other group. Just gonna lay this out. We'll do this a couple times. Just want to show you what he showed me. And so my lieutenant at the time, and now he's the training captain, he came down. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just showing these guys a few things that, you know, my buddy showed me over here on Group 1. And he goes, okay, yeah, tell me what you're doing. And I told him, and he was like, this is exactly how we're doing it. And he's like, okay. He goes over to the intercom, and he's like, Group 4, everybody down here for a training. And I hung up the phone, and he's like, now explain that to everybody else, and we're going to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, still new, and I'm like, is this guy setting me up?
Is this guy fucking with
Is
me?
he setting me up
Yeah.
so I could be that guy who steps out of line, so he can be like,
You are now
nerd?
the most
Yeah.
hated
what
guy
I
in the
mean?
group.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm sitting
Thanks.
there, I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, so we're going to do this training, you know?
Yeah, you got some like dude that was on the
Yeah.
department before they banned smoking in the
Yeah.
background, just like
Yeah.
this fucking,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Actually,
Thanks a lot. Yeah, you're the guy that asks
Yeah.
questions during the lectures. It's like, thanks a
Yeah.
lot, dickhead.
Does anybody have any
Exactly,
questions?
yeah.
Put your fucking hand up.
Dude.
Shut your mouth.
So, but you know what? It facilitated exactly what's going on right here.
That's good culture,
Huge
man.
conversation,
That's
yeah.
huge to be
Yeah.
like a new
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
have a seasoned guy, an officer there, and he says, "What are you doing? Okay, I like what you're doing. Hey, everybody, come down and let's do this." Like that's
Right.
fucking, that's great.
Yeah.
To me, that's great
Yeah.
culture, man.
Yeah.
That's great. I like that.
No, that was definitely a like a standout moment. I was that was like looking back. I didn't realize how huge it was when it happened, but like looking back, yeah, that was big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Creates
it
the
just
environment.
it
It
just
facilitates the opportunity.
got everybody talking
Yeah.
for the day.
Yeah.
You know, and so now, what we're gonna do is since I got. This is just something we all just talked about. You know, we've all been talking about doing roundtable talks, which we do all the time. We're at work. We're always going to talk about
Yeah.
it, but we talk about stuff, but we don't always specifically go over like our SOPs and things like that. So now we're going to take, Eckert's book, and we're just going to take one page out of it every day. And
That's
right
sick.
after roll
That's
call,
awesome. Yeah.
and we're just going to, whatever it is, and then we're going to talk about it, and we're going to apply our tactics to it and how we're doing it. Just so,
Right.
and not so that we can just sit around and talk about fire taxes, but the problem is that we talk about this generational gap, right? Where it's just a gap. You have these guys who came in and they honed in on these skills, and then years have gone by and we have less fires and we have less incidents, and we're doing other things. And now they look to us because we're like the EMS pros, right? So they're like, when we get on an EMS incident, they're looking at us.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
so now we're just getting it to a point now where we can all be on the same page, because sometimes it's assumed that we know what we're doing, and sometimes we assume that these guys who have been on a long time, maybe they must have seen this 100 times, and then they're
Right.
looking for a little direction, whether it's on a medical, it doesn't matter what it
Right.
is. So we're just trying to get ourselves on the same page so that we have that fluid operation. you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that like that's the thing. You don't know what you don't know until you talk about it,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all the show is facilitating conversations.
Yeah. So I mean, like, kind of rounding it back to that, rounding back to the video before we move on is the kind of the moral and the point is that we have fewer of these high risk incidents.
Yeah.
And that's good for people, but it's also like bad for being proficient in some of that stuff. And the way that we mitigate that is by having, he says a rigorous training program, like that'd be fantastic if you could do it. Again, like, you're on a department, you can't take people out of service to do that necessarily. But for our purpose, the way that we can facilitate that is by having these conversations, again, like finding people who know what the fuck they're talking about, that have done some of those high risk, low frequency events, and find people and just knowledge share, right? So just get people to just talk to us.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
that's it.
there are those guys and girls out there who are on those jobs that do have the luxury of being either proficient, whether it be from just high call volume and still getting a lot of fires,
Or luck.
or luck, or
Shit
being,
luck.
yeah,
Yeah.
or just the sheer fact that they train excessively,
Right.
So those people are have great knowledge, and that's kind of what we want to see. Out. So.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else on that, or you want to?
No, I think let's dive into.
Yeah, I think that was
All
a
right.
good.
So speaking of training and knowledge sharing and talking about different tactics we might have based on our departments, I think we're gonna throw a size up scenario at you guys. So Nick, if you want to share that. All right. So
Oh Lord Jesus, it's fire.
Lord Jesus. So we
What
put
is
this
that?
on we put this on our Facebook page and our Instagram page. So if you haven't gone there and you're listening to this and you're not watching it and you want to see what we're looking at here, feel free to do so. Barry, you want to describe what we're looking at?
Yeah. So looks like potentially 2-story, but I'd probably say that's a single-story wood frame structure. Depending on that, looks like there probably is a walkout in the back. I would bet there's like a basement walkout potentially. Heavy bulk of the fire obviously confined to the garage. Looks like maybe a single car garage with a side space. Immaculate grass. I just want to bring that up.
Yeah, it's a real tragedy. Is that
being a homeowner,
some ladder is going to beach that lawn.
Yeah, being a homeowner, my first and foremost priority is to preserve property conservation, as Matt said earlier. Preserve that grass because that's phenomenal. So it looks like 1.5 story wood frame structure. Obviously heavy fire isolated to the garage, potentially tenable space to the left hand side. So do you want to dive into like what everyone's initial call off is, or how do you want to dice this up?
Yeah, so for me, I'd say that's probably like a 1.5 story.
Yeah.
Obviously you got fire bulk in the garage. It's probably getting up in the eaves. You're gonna definitely risk having it on that top floor. I just see that window above what's probably like a living room or something there. To me, like no standing on the windows, no smoke pushing. May or may not have made it into the actual house at this point. Hard to tell. Yeah. Definitely an exposure issue.
Yeah.
So for me, so coming off, I would call that in as obviously I'd say a 1.5 story wood frame building, heavy fire in the garage. Definitely call it a working fire. And then I think my just given like a initial priority would probably be getting a 2.5 off the truck and getting the bulk of that fire in the garage, and then wetting down that exposure. You can see it's burning between there.
Yeah.
And I think a 2.5 on this one, just the bulk of fire obviously is a lot. It's going to be it's a lot of fire. And then we don't know if there's a car in there or something that might be burning metal where we need to really have a high volume, and then obviously hitting that exposure. And then I think after that, the next line needs to go into the habitable space and make sure that door is closed. And if it's not, start putting out the fire, and then probably be concerned about that top floor for sure, getting up in there.
So you want to do like a round table of like, your priorities as a squad, my priorities as an engine company, Cambridge, and then
why don't you go ahead and I got a couple people that actually responded to this on. So I don't mean to be on my phone, but I'm pulling it up. So from different departments that kind of gave their take on it too. So we can do that as well. So if you want to start, I'm actually going to step away and get this.
So, obviously we have the luxury, I'm on an engine company, so I'll approach it from the engine company perspective. But we have the luxury, we're going to have multiple engine companies coming to this call in relatively quick succession. Obviously you have heavy fire emanating from the garage. So depending on whether you get reports of occupants trapped, the priorities will differentiate. But you have bulk of the fire isolated to the garage, and you also have an exposure in pretty close proximity. So I would say, I had someone that I trust and admire very much say for most residential interior structure fires, 1 3/4 is going to be your bread and butter because it's so maneuverable. You can get around, right? So I'd say, obviously we have the luxury. I'd say 2.5 on the garage. You can knock down to the bulk of the fire, and obviously you're going to have 1 3/4 through that front door. Through the front door, especially if you have a report to occupants trap. You want to put a hand line between potential occupants and the progression of the fire. Obviously, ladder companies are going to be doing their thing. Squad's probably going to be showing up doing search, right? But realistically, and if you have the opportunity to do so, I'd like to have multiple lines being stretched at the same time. So where you have 1 3/4 through the front door, looking for extension, potentially putting that hand line between the progression of the fire and potential trapped occupants, as well as that 2.5 knocking down the bulk of the fire in the garage. And that'll probably happen pretty quickly. But that's my primary concern. Obviously, ladder companies will be working on ventilation in coordination with the engine companies. If the rescue's showing up, they're going to be doing search. They're also probably going to be helping with ventilation, securing utilities, the works. But and obviously, as I said, my priority is that grass, because knowing how much work has gone into that grass, whether there's an irrigation system on site that it can turn on, or whether you need to get an additional hand line on a fog pattern.
That guy's out there with
the house at this point is a loss. The grass is not a loss, and I know how much work has gone into that. Matt, you talked about earlier, like, let's keep those couplings off the grass. I don't want any divots.
Yep.
Do what we can.
The house is a loss, but that lawn can be saved.
That lawn can be. I don't want, I don't know what month this is, but like, it's not scorched, right? So we have an opportunity to save that lawn for the rest of the season. Like, let's help that man preserve his dignity. He's lost his house. He has not lost his grass.
Mm-hmm. He can still mow that lawn even when the house is completely right to the ground.
Still care for it.
Yeah. The American flag's still standing.
Yep,
God damn it.
Yep, save that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, you want to take it?
So obviously I'm going to pull off in my ambulance I'm gonna look at this, and my first thing I'm looking at is we have a small staircase here, so I'm gonna grab my stair chair. Can't bring the stretcher into this one, and pretty much see, hey, what's going on today? What brings us here? So no, obviously, we had a couple of these exact scenarios play out recently. Actually, it was just funny how they, we had like 3 of them kind of back to back. And I will say, not being on any of them myself, but just kind of learning from the guys that did show up and some of their strategies. Like you were saying, the first due company pulling off a big line.
Yeah.
One of the guys I work with always, can't stress enough, big fire, big water. And so they had great success on this exact type of setup. More it was a split, split level house with a garage on the first floor.
Yeah.
Underneath like your typical, like a living room setup or something.
Yeah.
But and they were able to stop it to the garage space. And so I think it's just making that decision right away to kind of attack. And obviously but is there a car there? If there is, obviously someone must be home, right? Or so. Right. Priority do a search, right? Get in there and see if there's anybody.
Yeah.
But
I was trying to tell, and it looks like the bottom of that garage door is kind of burned away, but
it's tough. It's kind of tough to tell if that's a garage door. It's kind of hard.
I can't tell if there's a pillar there, and there's almost like a small subsection on the corner.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like not quite a 2-car garage, but it also could be deception just at the angle.
Yeah,
but it definitely looks like
at least they took their trash out, So.
Right.
Yeah, I mean
So
maybe
that
that's
was
what
nice.
started it.
Yeah.
Or they just didn't bring it in after like a week.
Yeah.
And it's just sitting
That's
there.
he didn't bring it in, so she's like, "Fuck
You know what,
you,"
though?
and she lit the place.
With a lawn like that,
Yeah.
he probably brought his trash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt, what was it?
It's the
One of your
association.
captains saying like, "Don't be a bitch. Grab the 2.5."
Yeah. So I was at a similar, it wasn't a garage, but it was a split level home, and they had a living room set up, in there, and a couple sofas, and they had one of those what the fuck are those you ride on them, the 2-wheeled things, the hoverboards.
The
hoverboards.
Yeah.
And it caught fire.
Lithium ion.
Yeah,
We'll talk
the
about
batteries,
it.
those lithium ion
Absolutely gotta
batteries.
be a subject
And
at some
so the family wasn't home, and caught fire. And the first due company, pulled off a 2.5. Did a little transitional attack from the outside, the ground level windows, and got pretty much all of it out. And then, from there, I pulled up a second on scene. I was on the ambulance, and basically, hey, make force entry. Let's go in, and we'll hit it from the rest. So I was able, fortunate enough to get some forcible entry work in, and then gearing up and everything. The guys knew, because I was 6 days out of the academy, so I was fortunate enough at the time. The guys,
Actually, I remember. I think Barry texted me and was like, "This motherfucker got a job, and he just got out of the fucking."
I was fortunate enough with the guys I work with are great, and they knew that, and they were trying to let me get some work in. And but anyways, so at the doorway, somebody made the suggestion, "Hey, let's grab an 1 3/4. We'll bring it in." And the captain, a very old school guy, was like, "You have a 2.5 right here. Fucking bring that in right now." And somebody's like, he's like, we'll grab an 1 3/4. We'll just pull it in there. He goes, get that fucking 2.5 in there right now. He goes, there's like 5 of you sitting here. He goes, what the fuck are we talking about? Right. And basically, all right. And that's exactly what we did.
So
and
Matt picked the whole thing up himself and just trudged in there with it.
He was like, "All right, sweet. I don't have to go to the gym today."
Yeah, right. So, it was just kind of funny, varying opinions and whatever.
Oh yeah.
But
and that's the thing. It's like there are things that are definites and there are things that are opinions. Like I heard you say about taking an 1 3/4.
Yeah.
And like to my point with the 2.5, if depending on the scenario and how it was rolling up, like the ultimate goal is to obviously get this fire out and then get anybody and protect inside. So if my role was going to be hit that fire and then advance into the house, I would pull probably an 1 3/4. But if you had the personnel there, I would just put a 2.5, because not the odds are, but I say that there's at least a reasonable scenario, reasonable likelihood that door is closed, and it held it. And if you can wash down those eaves, and like before it gets up into there, and get that fire out in the garage, then you might not have a problem.
I was gonna say that looking at that house, and I know people who own similar homes, whether they're like the prefab homes or whatever they are, there's a doorway and then an entry, like a closet,
Like a mudroom,
and then
kinda thing,
another
right?
door.
Yeah.
So you actually have, like, in a situation like this, I think you get there and you knock the bulk of that fire down and you're done. I don't think there's going to be a lot of now the problem is, now if it's just a regular house that got built on site and wasn't modular, right? That's great. Now you get these prefab homes where some of them are designed to go a second story if you want to add on later, things like
Right.
that. Now you have that have that space.
They have that modular.
Yeah, you have that space in between the floors, and now you might have to account for that. And you might have to pull some ceilings and do some things like that.
I definitely think that no matter what, you're taking a line into the occupied space.
No, you have
no
to.
matter
So, yeah.
what, whether or
Yeah.
not you think
No question,
that,
but you're definitely going through the front door.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
not- you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would probably be going through a front door and taking a
Yeah.
turn towards that
Yeah.
garage,
Yeah.
or going right up the stairs. I
Yeah.
think that most likely spread of this fire is going to be into the attic. And looking at this house, you're probably going to be dealing with like potentially knee walls and shit in there
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
like it could definitely become like
Yeah.
a pretty significant fire if
Oh, yeah.
it got
Yeah.
into those eaves,
Yeah.
into that cock loft and attic space,
Yeah.
and behind knee walls.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it
Yeah.
looks like it's definitely cooked a good amount of the front of that house, so
Yeah.
it's definitely possible.
So I think there's a few factors, and one of the points that I brought up was, a mutual mentor. I think a mentor to almost everyone at this table had said it's always a compromise between speed and maneuverability and GPM.
absolutely.
So I think anytime, and I think this kind of speaks to that generational change. This looks like relatively midday, right? So
Right.
I think 20 years ago, most people would say, hey, midday, there's probably a fair chance that probably no one's home, maybe. But now, like the COVID environment,
working
like a
from
lot of
home.
people work remote. So there's a high
Yeah.
chance, the time of day doesn't really matter anymore. So you have to almost operate on the assumption that it is an occupied structure until
Right.
proven otherwise. But at a minimum, a 2.5 for exterior operations and 1.75 inches through that front door.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and that's exactly what I would
Yeah.
think too. And if you
Yeah.
like, if you're in a smaller place, or you know that you're also going to be making that entry, then maybe you do pull just the 1.75 and hit as much of that as you can, and then try and come from the other side and push it. But
Yeah.
I'm also that person I've had conversations with as well, and I'm a big 1.75 inside residential
You're
structures.
gonna
They're
fight
just
room to room.
so
how
much
are you
easier.
gonna fight that fire room to room?
yeah, big
Yeah.
open spaces is another thing, but residential
Yeah.
structures.
I don't
yeah.
think you're going to find much argument there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that there are people that are
No,
just
it's
they
out
are
there,
they
but-
are 2.5 because the thing with the houses now is everything's plastic, so it gets real hot, it gets real smoky real fast, and people like that GPM. But
Yeah.
and even in our job, like at least you have the manpower to move it. And some jobs,
Yeah,
like
we're
you
fortunate.
really don't.
Yeah.
not
So I think
that you
that's-
can't get it done, but
I think that's
Yeah.
a good caveat.
you want me to read?
Yeah,
All right,
because
so-
I think that represents the choice. Like we're all lucky that for the most part, we all have greater than 10-man minimum career fire departments. You don't really have to make the choice. I mean, you're going to make the choice on scene. Am I pulling 1.75 or 2.5? But one way or the other, if you make the decision to pull the 1.75, someone else is coming behind you to pull that 2.5.
right.
Right? But
Or vice
as you-
versa.
yeah, or vice versa. But you look at these smaller jobs, like where they have enough staffing to essentially supply that initial engine company, and then the next engine company coming in is mutual aid. They got to make a choice. Like, am I pulling that 2.5 and 1.75? And that has significant implications of how this fire is going to go.
Yeah.
So I think
So-
that's a good caveat.
So I'll read a couple of these comments off our Facebook page.
Yeah.
So this first one is a guy named Brian, and he is actually the chief of his department, a pretty small department. Barry, you're more familiar. I don't want to
Alma mater, dude.
Yeah, I don't want to give like department names and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But do you know the daily staffing there?
I think they were going for like a 3-man minimum, right? Is that right?
They're
So-
they're only 2 right now though, right?
So I can't really speak super intelligently to it, but I think during the day they have the ambulance is staffed plus the chief plus one additional guy
Okay.
on days Monday through Friday. So essentially you're looking at 4 guys.
Okay.
Max. And actually, now I'm reading that, that's pretty clear. So he says car 1's responding with 1 engine that has 2, maybe 3 personnel. So that kind of leads to that, depending on the day and whatever. For any reported fire, they dispatch a first alarm, bringing any available personnel in and an aerial from a mutual aid department. So I'm guessing if somebody calls and says, "Hey, there's fucking flame shooting on my
Yeah,
house,"
so that's
they-
automatic mutual aid. Yeah.
He said in this case, car 1's on scene, single story, type 5, approximately 50 by 40 with an exposure. Said he'd bang a second alarm automatically.
Yep.
Engine 2, if in the hydrant district, so this is a town that also doesn't have hydrants. So,
so
again, like kind of representing that world that I'm not even.
Yeah.
I mean, I've drafted a brush truck, but
so
fuck.
I have had the opportunity to draft, and that's where I credit that call experience. But we all work in Metro Boston, so say something like drafting, like, dude, the fucking world's ending if we're drafting.
Yeah.
We actually have a small end of our town that is not in the hydrant district.
Yeah.
So, but we also have a call going to a tanker if we have a call at that. I mean, a fire down that end of town.
So he says if they're in the hydrant district, they're going to lay in, start knocking down with a 2.5. Next arriving apparatus is 5 to 15 minutes out from the first apparatus. That is a long time for a fire. That's a long time to be running with 2 guys. Leaves a person to make the hydrant. So these guys are so he's not only potentially not having a hydrant, if he has when he's laying the line in, but he doesn't have the personnel to actually make it. So you're 5 minutes before you're even getting water.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you're looking,
which
at
means you have to like be smart too, right? You can't just crack a 2.5 on tank water and leave it running for 2 minutes. You're gonna be out of water.
Yeah,
No,
you have to make the decision. If you're running 2 guys on an engine company, plus you have a car responding, you have to make the decision: are we going to run on tank water and try and knock down the bulk of the fire, or are we going to have one of those guys get off the engine, make the hydrant, while this guy essentially gets the lines ready, and then once they're,
right,
like you're making really tough choices.
You're making tough choices, and neither one is wrong, and both are hard decisions.
Or are you putting life safety right up front?
Yeah.
And are you getting there, not worrying about the hydrant in a sense, or if the chief's out in front of you, or somehow, I don't know, are you getting there and are you making sure you're doing a quick primary?
Yeah.
With all hands on deck, and then extinguishing what you can, because if no one's gonna die and it turns into a surround and drown, in my opinion,
the exposure is the important thing in that scenario.
So
If everybody's out of the house and whatever, then you put out as much as you can. You protect the exposure so it doesn't get any worse, basically. But
it's just whatever the best practice is, really, is how it shakes out.
So he says, make entry, attack, fire search. He said it'd probably go to a third alarm, which would bring a total of 5 towns and 30 to 40 firefighters arriving at different times over 30 to 45 minutes. He's a big proponent, call him early and often. You can always turn him back. If out of the hydrant district, water supply is a whole other challenge. Activate the 4th alarm tankers only, depending on how far away the supply is.
You're talking tanker shuttles.
Yeah, I
So
mean
that's the thing. Like, I don't think people think about, especially in Metro Boston. Like, you need to get that tanker shuttle early and often. And like, I know that obviously, it's one of my closest friends, highly intelligent, great fire officer, and like, he's one of his big things was like, call him early. You can always cancel him if you don't need him.
Yeah,
But
especially
you need
in
15,
there.
20 minutes.
He just said, so the last part of this is we have areas consisting of over a 5-mile loop to fill and dump a tanker.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long fucking way to haul water.
Yeah.
Like that's, and I don't even think people that live there sometimes realize like, oh, they're just like, yeah, we have a fire department, and be like, yeah, listen, your fire department's gonna be a little bit more challenged than one that has a hydrant every 500 feet. You know what I mean? Not that they're not gonna get it done. And I think that back to your point that like people take these small town jobs for granted, and sometimes these are really, really knowledgeable
Not
people.
only bringing the pump,
work.
you got to bring your own goddamn water.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
read one more of these, and this is a lieutenant from a department dean, and he says his initial assignment full shift is captain, who's the officer in charge, engine with a lieutenant and a firefighter, and then another engine with 2 firefighters and a ladder with 2 firefighters for a total of 7. I know for a fact that's if they're running full, and they will run down to 5. So take one of those engine or ladder away. And they run their ladder as a quint. So, assuming a fairly decent report and visible column of smoke, he's going to drop his 4-inch at the hydrant, lay in. So, as a lieutenant, he's a lieutenant on an engine, so he's going to say, I'm on scene, 1-story wood frame, attached garage, well involved. Exposure problem, delta side. Going to be offensive, strike the second alarm. I know that this department specifically doesn't have a working fire assignment, so they go straight to a second alarm. That recalls their department and gets mutual aid. Yeah. Said use police to see if they can safely make sure residents are out of the exposure building. and report conditions. So that's where you got to work as a team in some of these smaller places. Make sure the door is closed between the garage and residence. Stretch it 2.5 between the two structures. Knock down the bulk of the fire. Cool the exposure. And then 1 3/4 to the front door and have it ready to go in. Obviously, ladder 1, open the roof if they can. The next engine is going to make the connection to the hydrant. And then the first available crew will take that 1 3/4 through the front door, search for victims' fire. And that's one of the things I think I don't know where I saw it recently. It was talking about, like, you might be the officer on a hand line, and obviously you have people that their job's going to be to come in and search, but you might have to break off from your crew for a minute if you're in a situation like this and do that search while they're flowing water.
Yeah, search
keeping
off
you
the
safe,
line.
you know?
Yeah.
Next crew in would do the full primary. First available mutual aid makes entry into the exposure building. That's important. So I don't think any of us said that, but judging by there, you're going to want to go in and definitely make sure that there's no fire in those walls. And then after that, you're going to bring hooks in, start opening up, ceilings and spaces. I'm guessing in that second floor for sure. Said for them to go to a third alarm to be able to cover everything on both structures, and assuming more than just the siding of the exposure building got melted. Yeah. And then with the car in the garage, report to someone inside, change initial tactics to do a quick search sooner, and spread out and look like a lot until help shows up.
Yeah, right.
So
It's a lot of work to get done.
It is. So he actually wrote me too, and he's like, "Hey, I've read a lot of these because we've put a few things up now, right?" He's like, "I've read a lot of them. I haven't responded." And he said one of the things is, like, I feel like I talk too much or I say too much, and I was like, and I said to him, I said, A, I don't think so, but B, you have to have a lot more considerations as a small department where you're not only dealing with different crews, you're dealing with different departments that have different tactics, different arrival times. Like Brian said, 5 to 10 minutes for your next mutual aid engine. So you kind of have to lay that stuff out where like another department that might be a little bit bigger will have SOGs that kind of outline that first due engine, second due engine, third due engine, first truck. And so the officers can really focus on like dealing with the structure, making sure people, whatever it is, they don't have to necessarily also think about, at least initially, mutual aid companies coming in and who's going to go where and what's going to do what. Not that they don't. I just think it's like a little bit different when it's not all your own guys that are showing up on that initial assignment, or even second or third alarm.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I will say, in being in a smaller town, you actually get, and then obviously I've caught a few fires on overtime, right? But
you guys catch some.
Work
for
we
size
do.
Town.
We do. We get a lot of good work, and we get to go outside. I mean, we get to go to Brockton for some fires, which is awesome. And then Canton, Sharon.
Brockton calls you to the scene.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah, regularly we go there. A lot of times we make it there for, Brockton has so many guys on that, and they strike, if it's a working fire for them, they can typically handle it with that. But they oftentimes they'll go to second or third alarm, and we're going to the scene. I actually never got to go to the scene in Brockton, but I've covered for them a few times. But I've got to go to the scene in Canton, in Easton, and in Sharon. So we catch a fair amount of work. My point of all that is that you end up getting to know the guys that work your day, whether you're seeing them at the hospital in the ambulance or whether you're seeing them on scene. You know what I mean? So there's if you guys can believe it, there's another Morrissey in the next town over.
Shocking.
In Canton.
Metro Boston, there's more than one.
So
Next thing you're gonna tell me is more than one Mahoney.
Actually, my picture on intothejob.com where I took that selfie, that's actually when I went to actually, I'm sorry if I said Canton, I meant Sharon.
It's JobTlks.com.
Yeah, JobTlks.
Is it JobTlks.com?
Yeah, you're on the website.
Dang. Anyways,
It's a sister venture.
so when I took that selfie, that was in front of his locker, and I meant to send it off to him, and he actually came in that night, and I was going to show him the picture, and we were talking, and I just forgot. But you just end up bumping into the same people all the time. So you end up get a good. My point is, you get a good working relationship with them.
And you because the way our schedules work, you tend to work with the same people every shift. So
exactly.
And mutual aid, man, mutual aid is huge.
Yeah.
If you get a good mutual aid card, you're not only going to fires in your town or city, you're going to fires in the next town, or for me, we have 4, 5, 6 towns that were mutual aid on the second alarm or sooner. So that's great. And get in quick and get some work. It's good.
I think that's something that's important, especially for the guys that are going mutual aid a lot. Like, not only you have to know what's going on for resources and apparatus in your community, Like you got to know, like for you, like you really got to know like what the mutual aid towns around you are probably going to be doing on that initial working fire, and they're probably going to call you guys on automatic mutual aid.
Yeah.
And like on the way to that call, like okay, like Winchester, this is probably what Winchester's going to be doing. This is where we're going to be heading in. Like you guys have to have a reasonable understanding of what these mutual aid communities have for resources, and then what their expectation of you guys is. Where like for me, like I mean, I don't do a lot of mutual aid, but like I don't even honestly like mutual aid is not really a consideration for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not something I think about.
Right. Yeah, a big one. Well, I mean, you guys are mutual aid to one of the towns.
Yeah,
with us,
but it's not something that
it's
like
not frequent.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like getting to know the radio, being able to like switch.
Yeah, you
got to
be. Yeah.
Like I felt before I went to my initial assignment, like I felt like I didn't really know the radio that well, and now I feel pretty confident in it. But
comes back
I mean,
to
that's
discipline. But.
That's in the city too. Like we have a lot of. Thanks, buddy.
I tried to do that the first shift with him, but apparently didn't.
No, we were too busy scrubbing fucking grime off the walls at 8 o'clock at night.
The next topic was radios, but you gave up. So.
Yeah. Well, the
It's like
thing
that
is, I just
famous
wanted
picture of
somebody
the
like
miner.
better to teach me.
Yeah.
Not necessarily better with the info, just like as a human.
Yeah. Well, in both regards. Yeah.
In all regards.
In all regards. But I mean that happens in our city too. So we have a lot of line boxes, and like you have to know, or the officer has to know too when you're coming in, that you're not just getting your crews, but you're going to have a crew from a town, a city next door that's coming straight to the scene, an automatic alarm. And that definitely, I think it complicates things. And none of us are company officers, although I don't know how you guys work for us. When the lieutenant or captain, depending on what group you're on, is out, the senior person gets the radio. We don't hire back officers until there's a certain amount out for the day. Yeah. So I've had like a fair opportunity to have the radio. Nothing ever at an actual like.
Yeah.
We're on the same lines. We have a senior guy who you have to. It's out of grade time for us, and the only person eligible
acting out of grade.
Yeah, the only person eligible for out of grade time is our senior guy, and our senior guy gets shifted. So we don't. Let's just say group 4. Let's say everybody's out sick, and it's all guys that I have seniority over working with us. So I'm like the senior guy for the day. That doesn't make me eligible for out of grade time. You have to be. There's 4 senior guys on the department.
Oh no shit.
1 per group.
Wow.
That's our senior guy, and they're eligible for out of grade time. It may be 2 senior guys on each group
across the department
eligible.
writ large, so they can go.
And so they shift them to other companies because they, or other groups. So like if somebody retires or gets hurt, we actually just recently, had our senior guy move to another group, and so now we have another senior guy.
Yeah.
So even if that person was also out, would you still be like acting as the officer and just not getting out of grade, or they hire back?
You're hiring back now. At that point, I'm pretty sure
It's very different.
Yeah,
it's very different.
And you have to go. There's like you have to obviously have like your company officer class, and you have to have a few other things checked off the bucket list. And then on top of that, it's kind of like a department approval thing. So it's like, you're good to go. You're going to be the guy, and that's it.
It's not bad. I mean, there are pros and cons to doing it always. I think our way lends people to getting experience in that position a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say.
Doesn't necessarily always put the most senior person there.
No, there's pros and cons.
But when you're working with another senior person, you have that person as your back. Being the officer, you're not always going to be the most senior person anyway.
No,
right.
And
that's a really good point, because we have guys who have been on the job, and there are senior guys who have been on 25 years, and we have lieutenants who have now been on for like 10 years. So they're certainly not even close to a senior guy.
Yeah.
But that's just how we work it.
Yeah, no, and I think there's pros and cons to both systems, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So our system is different. Like if you're, the senior guy in that company, like
that
day, you're gonna get the radio.
But it goes to like your company on your group, right?
Yeah.
So Barry, engine 1. So engine 1, group 3. If he's a senior guy that day, he gets a radio. If he's not eligible, then it goes to somebody that's in that station for that group.
Yeah.
Then it goes to somebody anywhere on the department that's on that group, and then it goes to like swaps and overtime.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Which is good, because it's the person that's familiar with that, most familiar with that company and that group that gets it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, you could get like a pretty junior person, because you only need 2 years on it to get the radio.
Yeah.
Although you don't really get it that much at 2 years generally, but you can still get a young person, but they're the most familiar with working with the rest of the people on that shift
Yeah.
and being in that company, which I think
Yeah.
makes a difference.
I think that was one of the pivotal moments of like, I mean, I haven't been on the job that long. I've been on for almost 5 years, not in, like on a professional career department, I guess. But I still remember the day, when I was on prior to engine, when I was on engine 3, and I got a text from my captain saying essentially like, hey, like you're essentially the new senior man.
I also remember getting the text message when Barry got that call.
Yeah, because I like text my friends. I was like, "Oh my god, I have no fucking. What do I do with my hands, dude? I have no idea what the fuck's going on."
We had a good lieutenant though.
We
at
had
the
an excellent
time,
lieutenant.
and I haven't seen this from a lot of people,
Yeah.
but he actually like when we were both coming up on
Yeah.
our 2-year mark, had us ride the seat, and he rode the back. He rode the
Yeah.
back, and
The
like
back seat.
He's like, you guys are on the radio. He's like, obviously, if like it's a fucking you're showing up a fire show, and like I'm gonna take over, but
Yeah.
like he was like, you're riding the seat, you're calling
Yeah.
on the radio, you're
Yeah.
whatever, and,
Right.
and
He was a good
and
fucking officer.
yeah, and I think that was really great. So
Yeah.
kudos to him. But,
Yeah.
Um,
But I think that like that opportunity, like I and you can't speak for everyone. Like I do well, like as far as like being forced to be put in uncomfortable position that
yeah, me
facilitates
too.
growth.
Me too.
However, I also had, the good graces of one, I had an excellent company officer, and I also had you. So I knew that like, Will and I were on the same crew to get So I had a good crew where like I knew that like if shit went really south, like I at least had Will to like balance me out. Like so and we had plenty of calls, like just because you're acting officer.
Or
like,
was it like you had Will to make you look good?
essentially. That's
I didn't know.
He didn't want to say that.
I didn't know which
directly,
way he was
but
going.
you have
Right.
like you have good people around you to make sure you don't fuck up.
right.
Or like, and I view it very much as a team effort. Like you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I know that's cliche, but it's true.
Right.
But like we had calls that were like shitty, or like for example, like that incident where, we were like 2 blocks away. Like I was so hyper focused on not sounding like a fucking idiot on the radio to like these 90 incoming companies. I forgot all the other shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Will picked up my fucking slack.
I mean, I left the pump and went in the house, so there
Yeah,
was
I
nobody.
was talking.
There was nobody to
you know,
pump, but I mean,
it wasn't
you know
the best.
what?
It wasn't the best call.
Then somebody
But,
picked
you
up
know,
my slack.
Yeah,
and, it was like
yeah.
cascade.
And we also had a guy that was he was also an overtime guy.
right.
But you know what I mean, like, and that's how you learn. But I
Yeah.
think I think that system, as far as like the senior management, like it forces sometimes people. Like I think you'll have a good amount of people, especially young guys that are hungry. It forces them to step up.
Yeah.
I think it's a good opportunity. But there's pros and cons of both systems. But
Yeah.
I digress.
I digress.
Thank God.
I think we're good with that one, Nick.
Yeah, it's back on the video.
What's that?
It's back on the video. This is just for you guys. So you
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
Yeah.
That was I gotta say, like I was kind of worried about like how organic the conversation would flow, and I felt like that was pretty.
Yeah, because I generally hate talking to you guys.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Are we done? We still got to do the outro.
Whoa, guys, we're gonna do the outro,
Oh boy.
It's a good thing Nick can edit this.
but the most important part,
Yeah.
of the episode is
Yeah.
the question of the day.
Oh.
Is it an audible though? Because
Yeah.
we had a pretty good one this morning.
Listen, we had to go in this morning,
I
but
know
this
it's
is
blank
I need
right there.
organic,
All right.
unscripted, candid feedback.
Oh,
All
so,
right.
okay.
You
Okay,
have a
so you have
question?
a new one.
Yeah. So
or do you
like,
want me to pitch a question?
No.
No,
Because
I
I
have
got
no
some.
question.
Does this
Each,
look infected?
yeah. No. So like each episode, like
I could
Matt,
use a little.
Yeah. Matt,
You're
when-
gonna come up with a question, just not
yeah.
today.
So like when you host the episode, right? It's a topic that you want. 90% of it is fire service related, and then it's one topic that's completely fucking off the walls. Like you have to make a compelling argument for why you're right. Like this fucking guy with chocolate chips. He's like, "Oh, I don't think chocolate chips belong in pancakes."
Fucking-
And then we all
hey,
have to defend.
Not
it.
only do they not belong in pancakes, they don't belong
I
in
think you're wrong.
anything.
I think you're wrong, but that's fine.
Whatever. All right, so that's not the question of the day, people.
All right. Question of the day.
Question of the day:
Let's hear it.
bacon, soft or crunchy?
I think there's a good middle ground.
Eat shit.
No, I like it.
There's not.
I like it. I like it chewy.
I'm
Oh,
chewy.
Big chewy guy.
Chewy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about that one. There's a fine line.
I agree.
Are you a
Between-
crunchy bacon guy?
Not like
No,
overcooked
dude, don't
crunchy,
completely
but
dehydrate.
there's,
This isn't a dehydrator.
Actually,
there's properly cooked bacon.
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
there's-
Where
properly
it's-
cooked is
where it's-
soft.
No. Not
There's
like
no
Yes,
crunchy involved.
absolutely.
No
No.
crunchy involved.
No crunchy
No,
at all.
chewy.
None.
Are you fucking
no.
serious?
Bro,
Like
the worst
jerky.
thing in the world is you get a
Soggy
jerky.
bacon?
No. Soft bacon.
Yeah.
Soft
You
bacon.
can't be.
So you get a BLT, right?
So
And you're fucking.
I can't talk to this
you got the fucking lettuce, some beautiful tomatoes, some mayo, right? The only place lettuce belongs other
You
than
told
a
me
salad.
earlier
was gonna
today.
say,
you can't
what's
have
all this
it.
lettuce talk?
Other than a salad.
Can
other
I do
than
a
salad.
quick caveat for 2 seconds?
You can do whatever you want.
I was once at Subway with my brother. Please stop.
Oh, sorry.
This is important. And my brother ordered a BLT. And the guy looked my brother dead in the eye and was like, would you like lettuce and tomato on that?
Dude, that happened to me.
And he's like, no,
No.
just bread
Bacon and
and
mayonnaise.
bacon and mayo.
One of my
Dude,
best
that
friends
happened to
growing
me
up
too.
as a kid would get straight bacon sandwiches. It came on a braided, and it'd just be bacon and nothing else. I thought he was fucking crazy. So I ordered
Sociopath.
one.
Delicious.
Wasn't that bad?
All right. So imagine that you order that sandwich and it's beautiful, right? And then you bite into it and you get this crumbling powder of bullshit. with
sounds
burnt
overcooked.
Grease, with
sounds
burnt grease
overcooked to
taste
me.
in your mouth
Yeah, right.
instead of this like beautiful, soft, chewy, greasy, delicious
I don't think bacon
So-
should be completely chewy.
Well, listen,
I think there's a fine line. I got to go with Matt. There's a fine line. I think
Ah.
the exterior, like you have to have some crisp,
No, I don't like crisp.
but you have to
Yeah.
preserve, like the fat has to be there. It has to be a little soft.
If you pick it up, it should stay straight.
Yeah.
No, absolutely
You know?
not.
there's
If
also
it's like a flaccid
varying
noodle,
degrees
yeah.
of quality, right?
Yeah.
So if you get like a thick slice, I would say if I'm gonna get a thick slice of bacon, right? Yeah, still chewy,
gotta
goodness,
be.
right? But when you get that
Chewy.
crappy,
I don't think I'll ever be
when
coming
you get
back
that crappy
after this.
thin bacon, you know, that I think you do have to cook up a little bit more because it's just thin and weak.
Turns out this is my last episode of the podcast.
I'm about to walk off, dude. You guys are
I
going
lost
bacon
so much
chewy.
respect.
But chewy-
I
chewy
just
bacon.
want to
Chewy bacon overall.
Nick,
Floppy all day.
floppy bacon, floppy bacon,
Floppy?
chewy
Really?
bacon.
Floppy.
You're a floppy guy. I
Good.
did not
No
expect
exterior crisp.
Soft and floppy bacon.
Yeah.
with a guy with a beard like that. I did not expect him to say soft
Yeah,
bacon.
dude. You know what? With the soft bacon, you probably get a little bit of like grease drippings, right?
Save it for later.
Save it. Yep. So, thank you guys.
Flavor
He's the
saver.
producer. So
No,
I think his opinion.
Producer spoken.
He broke the tie, boys.
All right. So
Crunchy bacon.
All right, fine. We lose this round.
listen,
No,
guys.
so I vote that Nick is the tiebreak every time.
I like it. I'm in. Nick is the tiebreak.
Deal.
All right. So number one, go to the comments in our video, or go to our Facebook page and Instagram and tell us how you like your bacon, because we want to know.
Just prepare to be
Obviously,
fucking thoroughly just no one's gonna come at you with floppy fucking weak ass.
I will tell you
three
right now.
three of the 5 people
in
here
the,
did.
in the firehouse, I just prefer that it's cooked because oftentimes you know how it goes. I'm cooking breakfast tomorrow morning.
Listen, if somebody else
Sometimes
is
you start
listen,
the
if
grill
so-
and then you got to shut it
if
off.
somebody else is cooking me food, let me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say if I go to your house and you're making me breakfast, I'm not gonna like.
Well, it's probably air fried. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get mad at you for however it is. I'm gonna judge you internally. But if I'm paying for that shit, that shit better be good, and it better be soft baked.
Matt has had air fried steak at my house.
It's a thing. I don't think we should get an air fried steak.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
It was a matter of desperation. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, it was.
All
sort
right,
of-
so
yeah.
go to our YouTube video, comment, tell us how you like your bacon. Also, tell us what you think of the episode. We might be doing a good job. I think we did a pretty good job, but we also might suck. So let us know. We're not. We might be offended, but we want to know because this is for the people, by the people.
Yeah, feel free to attack us personally in the comment section.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
yeah. Tear us down.
A couple easy
Yeah.
things. I have
Just
red hair and a receding
Tear us down.
hairline.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
totally ununique to the fire service.
Exactly.
Just tear us all down.
That's
Yeah.
what we're That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Is to tear each other down.
Yeah.
So on a serious note, I think that does it for this week. Barry's going to be the host. So the way we're kind of running this with 4 people is we're going to kind of rotate who's the lead for the episode, kind of a topic that maybe somebody's passionate about or whatever the case is. So next week, Barry's going to take the reins on that. Dear God. Keep an eye out on our social media. So we're going to drop content that's related to next week's episode so you can view it ahead of time. Big thank you to all our listeners, all of our followers. Probably going to be like a whopping. Nick, are you going to follow us? 4 to 5
in
of
the air.
us. So
Up in the
for
air.
now,
No,
4 to 5 of
My,
us.
my dog will listen.
And for everybody, big shout out to Big Dick Nick. He is our producer with Wilco Media Group. They are also on IG and YouTube. He's the one putting these videos and doing these awesome edits. Probably editing out like the 96 burps I had during that. And he's also gonna put our podcasts on all the major streaming apps. Is that right? Yeah. And the best thing you can do for us is to share our content, share our podcast, talk to people about it, listen to it, like us, rate us,
engage with us.
Listen, like, and share.
listen, like, and share. I never thought I would hear myself say that.
And keep in mind, and we'll
it is what
reiterate.
it is.
We will reiterate. We are not the experts.
We're not the experts.
We're facilitating conversation with our friends, trying to better the service that we got into.
Leave it better
Classic
than you found
line,
it.
leave it better than you
Boy
found
Scout
it.
motto, right?
That's it.
I can barely break up a bag of ice.
Well, that
That was awful, Barry.
Whatever.
last but not
Miscommunication.
wasn't sure. Listen, you didn't listen. It's a high risk, low frequency event. How
The
often
ice-
do you break
the
up
ice
a
was
bag
not
of
for
ice?
cooling, it was for consumption.
Yeah,
so
you
there's a
didn't.
difference in how you
didn't pre-plan the scenario. You didn't talk about it ahead of time, and you failed. So I mean, that just
I would have
literally
been fired from Swenson's.
literally proves our point.
Fucking gone, dude.
I mean, if I had my way, you'd be fired from literally everything. Anyway, last but not least, we want this podcast to be user-driven. We want to talk about the stuff that you're interested in. So we obviously have things that we are passionate about, that we want to talk about, but we want to know what you want to talk about. So go to our social media or our website, which is www.jobtalks.com. Again, that's JOBTLKS.com. Hit the share ideas tab, and under there you can find a form where you can write us anything. Again, if we suck, if you think we should be doing something different, let us know. We probably won't listen to you, but we'll at least read it. Whatever it is you want to talk about it, let's keep talking, and don't be afraid to be into the job.
Thanks.
All right, boys.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.